So this one's going to be a tough one, everybody. And if you're looking for market talk, you're probably not going to get much out of me anyway. I'm Gerardo Del Real, along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This is episode 171 of Bizarro World, and a much needed therapy session that, I'll be honest, I don't know if I'll be able to make it through. Nick and I had a conversation off air where I initially wasn't going to do this. We were going to wait, but in the spirit of our weekly therapy session and in the spirit of everything that's going on in the country right now, I thought, let's just do what we always do, which is be honest and have a conversation. First and foremost, Nick, how are you?
I'm doing okay, Gerardo. Hanging in there, holding the kids close, thinking about everything that's going on, the response to everything that's going on politically, police-wise, and wondering, I think like many, how we got here, when we're actually going to do something about it, and counting blessings, honestly.
Well said. For those that aren't familiar, for those that haven't, seen the news, about an hour and a half from here, there was a shooting in an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, where 19 children and 2 adults were killed. That headline in itself was just heartbreaking enough. As a father of 3 boys, as someone who's got nieces, a niece in elementary school, I was heartbroken the minute I read the headline, and then the details started coming out. We find out that the shooter, 18-year-old asshole, I'm not going to say his name, was outside for 12 minutes shooting with cops around. We then find out that a teacher inadvertently left the door open, which is how he was able to enter the school. Parents, because there was active shooter alert, parents that got the alert immediately went to the school. Some were arrested. There were parents that were handcuffed for trying to pull their kids out of a school while a fucking psycho shot babies for 50 minutes. There were 19 or 20 police officers outside making sure, setting up a perimeter, that parents weren't allowed in. One mom, and man, hero of the fucking year, broke through a barrier, jumped a fence, jumped in the school, and pulled her 2 babies out. Her babies lived. 19 babies did not live. I then have to hear Governor Greg Abbott praise the police response initially, saying how brave these officers were in responding within minutes. We now know that they sat outside for nearly an hour and let this madman just rampage through rooms, shooting babies, shooting a teacher. Prior to this, he had shot his grandmother. We know that at 12:03, a little girl called the cops. She called 911. Said she was in room 112. Please help. Send the police. Then at 12:10, someone else called. Then at 12:13, this little girl called again. Then at 12:16, someone else called and said there's 8 to 9 students alive. Please come in. Then 3 minutes later at 12:19, a student calls from room 111. A couple of minutes later, 3 shots are heard on the call. At 12:36, another call. At 12:43, another call. Kids asking, begging for the police to come in. At 12:47, another call. The director of DPS prevented an elite border patrol unit from going in. because they said, or they're saying now, that they thought what they had was a suspect that was barricaded in a room, and they didn't think anybody was still alive. The response thus far from the police department in Uvalde is one of the most infuriating things I think I've ever heard. To know that these babies were in there for an hour doing what they had been trained to do, because in this country now we train our babies for active shooter drills. All these officers were armed. All these officers had Kevlar. The captain, the chief said, the head of the Department of Public Safety said, they were afraid to go in because they could have been shot while babies were being picked off. They found 58 magazines at the school, 2 assault rifles. The 18-year-old was able to buy they found 1,657 bullets. He bought a lot more. And because it's America, fucking used credit to buy the guns and the bullets. He financed the bullets. There's so many things that are wrong with what happened. And the most infuriating part to me is the fact that babies sat there bleeding out for an hour while parents were forced to stay outside. And I can't imagine what those parents feel like. I was telling Nick off air, the wife and I were, like, as everybody is, anybody with a fucking heartbeat, right? Just heartbroken, and thought, well, let's go out and have some drinks and have dinner with some friends, right? And so, a friend of ours texted another friend and said, sorry, not going to be able to make it. Her husband's a police officer. He's an Austin police officer. His hometown is Uvalde. And he knew the teacher that was killed and went to school with her husband, who had a heart attack the very next day. They were together for 24 years. They have 4 babies. I just, anybody that knows me knows I lean libertarian. I'm very pro-gun. I believe in the right to self-defense. I believe in the right to arm ourselves. I believe that it's important to be able to protect your family. It's important to be able to protect your loved ones. But be absolutely clear, everybody, the way that we're allowed to own guns in America is absolutely fucking idiotic. We have Republican senators that won't pass a bill to allow background checks because the lobbyists are pimping them so well that even in the face of something like this, we can't get a bill voted on not to take guns away, not to ban assault rifles. That's another conversation that we can have in a bit. Just to allow for background checks so we can at least put up as many, preventive measures as we possibly can. In this country, we are not, I don't think in my lifetime, nor do I know that I want to see it, going to ban guns. But this current way of doing it isn't it. Nick, you have babies. My kids are older, but, I have one in 8th grade and I have my nieces, and we sat down at the dinner table and, I asked them what they would do to safeguard the school. And we're very fortunate. We're in a rather well-off part of Round Rock, Texas. Excellent school district. Let me read the letter that the school district sent. I thought it was very well written because I want people that are listening, maybe from outside the country, another part of the world where this doesn't happen every day, to know the kinds of correspondence that we're getting, right? It reads, Dear Round Rock ISD community, the unspeakably tragic events in Uvalde, Texas are every parent's worst nightmare. As a parent and a former classroom teacher and school principal, events like this, from Sandy Hook to Parkland to Santa Fe, are haunting and they never leave us. Your children are precious, and I want you to know that our staff, our Round Rock Police ISD officers, our local law enforcement, are all committed to maintaining safe and secure campuses. Now, this is the part that I want to emphasize. I won't read the entire letter, but it says, our safety and security department and Round Rock ISD police have emergency plans and procedures in place to prevent and respond to an active shooter event. Our officers train regularly for active shooter situations and collaborate with local law enforcement. All campus doors are required to remain locked during the day, with the exception of during passing periods on middle and high school campuses. And video intercom systems ensure that front office staff have visual contact before allowing anyone into the school. All entrances also have a secure vestibule as an added layer of security. Recently, we were able to leverage a grant from the Texas Education Agency to ensure that all elementary campuses have bullet-resistant film on front windows and doors. And then they go on to talk about, support. The fact that I'm thankful that the windows have a bulletproof film, the fact that in my mind initially, I was angry that we're sending, and rightfully so, let's help everybody if we're just going to print money, but hundreds of billions of dollars in weapons and money to the Ukraine, and we can't secure our schools? We can't pass a law for background checks? I didn't even get to talk last week about the Buffalo shooting where a white supremacist decided to go into Buffalo and kill black people. Now I find out this week that a retired federal agent was in chat rooms with this guy and may have known about it in advance.
Oh, Jesus.
I could go on forever, Nick. I want to get your take. I hope you're well. This one, I told you off air, and obviously it's hit me hard. And man, if you have babies and you're lucky enough to still have them, hug them and keep them close. If school hadn't ended, I would have pulled my youngest out of school for the rest of the year. That's where we're at in America right now, folks. Hey, you want to send your baby to go die? You want to risk it?
Yeah, a lot of people having those thoughts, and you being in Texas and this hitting the Latino community hard. I was thinking about you during that week. I have a preschooler and a kindergartner, and we were talking about it with them, and it's gut-wrenching to have to do that, first of all, but then to hear your kids be scared about having to go to school, or to listen to your wife talk about how your daughter's classroom is the closest one to the door, and how she's worried about that. And I guess I would say a lot of things. I took some notes here. When you've got to a place where you're talking about securing the perimeter of an elementary school and reinforcing doors and vestibules and windows, something else has gone tragically wrong in society once you've got to that point where you're having those conversations. And I would talk about larger events that are going on that play into this, from wealth inequality to no upward mobility to lack of leadership, lack of positive male role models, etc. Numerous causes, even the mental health. It's not one thing. It's all of the above. And it's a holistic approach, I think, that needs to be taken to get the country back on a course that was pre-Columbine, right? This is a recent phenomenon, despite America's always been a gun culture, right? The school mass shooting, soft target even. It's not just schools, it's soft targets. Grocery stores, you just mentioned. There's a reason that those have grown. And you mentioned the FBI, and the FBI was saying this week that We've got so many lone wolf incidents, like the guy you were saying in the chat room, and so many people they're tracking that they can't keep track because it's not one cause. It's not, whatever, Aryan Nation, replacement theory, incels. It's so many things that there's no one underlying cause that triggers people to go on rampages like that. And that tells you that there's so much wrong societally, that it's not, just a mental health thing. We got to talk about the militarization of police and the police response, because it's a recurring pillar topic of this podcast, and certainly one that I've been writing and talking about vociferously for the better part of a decade, if not longer. And I can cite numerous examples, but we've got the highest level of SWAT calls in history. If you look at a chart of the amount of times that SWAT units are called out, it's a hockey stick graph up and to the right. And the amount of money that we've spent arming, shielding, training police militaristically since 9/11 is off the charts as well. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but everyone knows that the police have been militarized, given assault weapons, and they see their response in other events, which is something I want to talk about for a second. We've seen in recent years the willingness of cops to take lives, whether it's choking someone out for selling loose cigarettes, or it's kneeling on their back and causing asphyxiation because of trying to pass a bad check, or it's pushing a 70-something-year-old man down at a peaceful protest so that he fractures his skull and bleeds out while they're wearing their masks and shields. And they do that with impunity. They don't receive charges for that. The other thing I'd mention is a 2005 Supreme Court case that ruled. It was Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, and the Supreme Court ruled that the police have no constitutional duty to protect the public. And so from that, you add on the militarization of police, and then you bring in this whole thin blue line conversation that has caused protests in the past couple of years. And you come to the conclusion that police are only interested in protecting themselves. So we've talked about this before. The thin blue line means that you don't snitch when cops are doing something wrong, right? You turn a blind eye to it. And even if you're a good cop, and what that's created is a metastasized culture of only protecting their own. To the point where they're more interested in protecting their own lives than the lives of 19 children being murdered in front of their own eyes. Literally, as you said, the guy, I don't know who he was, the police chief or sergeant or whatever, on the news the next day said they didn't go in because they could have been shot. Well, no fucking shit, they could have been shot. Isn't that what they signed up for? And then to restrict, and this is an important point, at least for me, wow, to restrict the other parents from going in is a crime of the highest order. And so I've told you before, Gerardo, I asked my brother-in-law cop when it came time to load me on the train, are you gonna take those orders and load me on the train? Are you gonna fight against the orders that are coming down? And then he said he's gonna load me on the train. And you saw this week the cops loading the parents on train. They are there to protect their culture. They are there to protect the state, and they are there to protect that's it. The culture, themselves, and the state, not you, right? As the Supreme Court ruled. And so it's just entirely sad. And I guess I'll talk about guns for a second too. Second Amendment supporter here, owner of multiple firearms, including an assault rifle. I think that this tragedy happened at a point where our generation, late 30s, early 40s, are more mature than they were at Sandy Hook, right? In Sandy Hook, which was the last most deadliest shooting in an elementary school, I was, of course, shocked and appalled, but I wasn't at a state of maturity in my life where I was prepared to take action or to have reasonable conversations about the Second Amendment and things like that. So in just doing self-reflection this week and in talking to friends of mine who own guns, who also support the Second Amendment, I think the common sense approach, even among those of us who are gun owners, is that we've got to start making common sense decisions. Obviously, background checks, right, is a clear and easy one. And then I got to talk about 9/11 for a second, because there was this lady in Congress who made a post saying that we didn't ban planes after 9/11. She, of course, is a
fucking lady,
right? And so, but what we did do is pass the Patriot Act, which led to the biggest invasion of privacy and inconveniencing people who are traveling that the country has ever seen, right? We started spying on people with the NSA. We started making people take off their shoes to get on planes. We made it harder to travel. We certainly did take action after 9/11. No, we didn't ban guns, like you're saying. We likely won't ban, or we didn't ban planes, like you're saying. We likely won't ban guns. But there's obviously common sense approaches you can take to get stuff done. And I view this as a bigger turning point than Sadie Hook. I see people in the media asking more follow-up questions, and I see the typical actors doing their typical thing. I saw Ted Cruz walk away from a reporter the other day when he got more than one follow-up question that he didn't like. They're not even willing to have the conversation. And then you got to talk about almost abortion as well, because we've said this before. Those that are anti-abortion or quote unquote pro-life, they're not pro-life when 19 kids just got shot up in the school, right? They're still pro-gun or pro not doing anything to prevent these sorts of tragedies. And so I hate to mention the fourth turning every podcast, but we know that bloodshed occurs
witnessing it
during fourth turnings. And I've said before that if it's not an all-out war, then it's some other form of violence and protest and bloodshed. And you've seen bloodshed in these protests over the past couple of years. You're seeing bloodshed in the lashing out of people who feel however they feel about society. Like I mentioned earlier, no options, no way out, no upward mobility. You're seeing a country reeling from the policies it's pursued from the past 20 years, and all those chickens come home to roost. And I'm sorry to get on a bit of a soapbox, but I guess those would be my thoughts on the issue.
Well said. When I was having that conversation with our kids about, them being younger and maybe seeing things through a different lens, right? And what we could do to make classrooms safer. My youngest, who turns 14 soon, said every room should have a card scanner. And you shouldn't be able to access the room without a card scanner. And I thought, yeah, that's practical. That seems inexpensive. I read that letter from the Round Rock School District because I thought, one, we're very fortunate to live in a school district that has the kind of funding to be able to have, the preventive measures that are there. But the fact that we're having to have these conversations on an almost weekly basis with our kids, it just has to change. I mean, there's so many smarter ways to not infringe upon the Second Amendment right. And we're going the other direction. I mentioned the background checks. This kid's buying thousands of rounds of ammunition and 2 assault rifles. No one thought that might be a little off.
Well, it's always in retrospect. You've got the people coming out now who said he was increasingly violent over the past couple of months, that he was aggressive at work, that he was a creep. But unfortunately, none of that stuff comes out or is documented ahead of time, and is seemingly always done in retrospect. And it becomes tough to draw a line in the sand on what predicates not being able to, what kind of behavior predicates not being able to purchase a gun.
there has to be more enforcement on training, right? I had Governor Abbott here last year just fucking bragging to his NRA buddies, stroking them, proud of himself that he made it to where here in Texas, you don't even have to go through any kind of training to get a handgun or carry concealed. You don't even have to know how to shoot a gun. You don't have to know how to clean it. You don't have to take a course. I can't buy Sudafed at fucking CVS without having to ask for a key and someone going and checking my ID. And there's just so many practical things that we can do. There isn't a reason in America why every single school campus doesn't have at least the level of security that the school campus here in Round Rock has. That should be the bare minimum. We have money for everything. Tax breaks for the rich, tax breaks for oil companies, hundreds of billions of dollars in weapons to the Ukraine. Stuff we don't have money for, we just print it. We just make it up.
Everybody gets $10,000 off their student loans. Yeah, I mean,
everybody gets $10,000. We got a Fed that buys stock and mortgage bonds and then double deals and front runs their own policy. It's a lack of will. And these babies can't keep dying because y'all don't have will. And if these fucking politicians aren't going to do a thing about it, then get them all the fuck out of there.
Well, that's the fourth turning, is the people's response to the institutions and the changing of leadership. And listening to I got to put leadership in quotes, man. I mean, it's just appalling. And we've been talking about the lack of leadership, but they don't say anything. I mean, you listen to them talk and it's literally like, I couldn't tell you what they said after they say it, because they're just throwing word salad at you in an attempt to bide time, so that, you know, the elapsed time from the event makes people forget and be less likely to act. And so at some point you have to put the onus on the people, because it is the people who vote these guys in or don't vote. And so the people and politicians' response to an event like this is what codifies the next trajectory of the country. And you're right, unless people step up and vote, unless you get the people in there who are going to do these common sense changes, then it's not going to happen. And you know, I guess I'll throw myself under the bus for a little bit. You know, I've been vocal about, you know, not voting for either side. I've been so withdrawn and so jaded that, you know, certainly in the presidential race, but definitely in others as well, that I don't pull the lever for either side, because I feel like I had to wash my hands of it. I think events like this, and again, coming back to the maturity level of this generation as it ages and becomes more mature, you know, I'll probably take a closer look at the people who actually have a shot at getting in office and see how my vote can be more impactful going forward. And then I don't even know if it's worth saying, but people, the whole institutions are so fucked up that people with good ideas and a solid head on their shoulders rightfully conclude that they shouldn't run for office. I mean, why would you want to do that job, right? And so things have to change there too, as far as term limits and campaign finance. And like I say, there's so many things that have to change to get the country back on the right track, that you can't say it's X or it's Y or it's Z. And unfortunately, a tough road ahead, a multi-year road, I would say, to get through the next elections, to get more octogenarians out of office and get new, younger leadership in there who came of age witnessing what happened in politics and with government and with law enforcement over the past 20 years, and aren't entrenched in it and are willing to vote in change when they get power.
A teacher called police saying that 8 to 9 students were still alive and that the shooter was in her classroom. While 19 police officers with assault rifles sat outside The journalist asked if that teacher and the student survived, and law enforcement refused to reply, which you can do the math, right? Yeah, I don't know what we're doing, Nick. I don't know what we're doing. I mean, we have to get the money out of politics. We have to get the lobbyists out of politics. We've talked about it before. We need you mentioned term limits. You know, we need the best and the brightest, and you get 4 to 8 years to serve your country and put your best ideas forth.
Right.
It's not a fucking career.
You can't get rich
right?
doing it. That's it. It should not be a career. You've got these guys and now taking millions of dollars from the NRA. I saw Marco Rubio's taking over $3 million from the NRA. I mean, they're padding their coffers. They're using this money to get elected. And as you say, it's pimped them out in the process. One more thing. About the police and accountability is you've seen a changing of the story. I mean, I don't even know what the story is. We thought he was barricaded in there alone. We thought there was no more survivors. And it's like, well, first of all, which is it? And second of all, if everyone's dead, like, why are you still waiting to go in there? And so you see how, and this is the case with all these police incidents where they kill somebody where it's not on footage, right? Is the media needs to not take the initial police story at face value because it's been shown all too frequently to not be the real story. And so, you know, in that respect, it comes back to the media needing to hold these law enforcement agencies more accountable. And to not report what they say as fact, because all too often it's been proven to be fiction. And that's, I think, just part of a broader reckoning with American society and their law enforcement. And I think this pulled back the curtain for a lot of people.
Representative Randy Fine. I don't even know if this is real. You know what? I'll wait because it can't be real. No. I'll leave it alone. I'll leave it alone.
A lot of misinformation too, right? Yeah, you had a congressman from Arizona saying it was like a transgendered person. Like a congressman from Arizona was, tweeting that it was
a transgender immigrant because of the kid's last name. And then they found out, no, he's from, I think it was North Dakota. And they're like, oops. That's where we are as a country, y'all. The babies haven't even been identified yet. We had politicians, elected officials, and quote unquote journalists speculating about the kid being an immigrant or being transgendered.
Yeah, and it all comes to light in moments like this, right? What their true intentions are, what their true beliefs are, what their true causes are. Immediately, you got to use it to further your agenda. On the right, like you say, to disparage the transgender crowd and immigration crowd, to stimulate your base, right? To dog whistle your base, right? I lost my next thought, but yeah, I mean, it immediately goes to politicization, and that's very unfortunate.
I know it doesn't matter, but I want to send all the best just wishes and energy and condolences to everybody from Uvalde. This isn't one of those situations where, like, if you're a human and you have a heartbeat, like, you're feeling this, right? Yeah. What else is going on, Nick?
Nothing. I got one more thing, and I am gonna not politicize it, but just like the pro-life people aren't pro-protecting these babies. You don't see a lot from the thin blue line crowd today talking about how brave the officers are and how they put their lives on the line. And, for the past 5 years, I've heard a lot about that, how you can't talk bad about officers because they're out there every day risking their lives for you. That's fucking bullshit. They were cowards and they hid.
And on that note, let me be absolutely clear. It was the Border Patrol agents that went in and finally
Yeah.
went inside after an hour of not only the 19 officers not going in, but an hour of them preventing parents from going in, an hour of them preventing the Border Patrol agents, that unit that eventually went in. That entire department needs to be held accountable. And every single one of those babies' blood is partially on their hands. They didn't do the shooting, but my God, this asshole that did it couldn't have found better accomplices.
Well, it's tough.
If let me just finish one point really quick, Nick. If this psycho would have brought 19 of his friends, spread them out, and said, make sure nobody comes in, keep parents outside, and make sure the cops don't come in, they would all be indicted for conspiracy to commit murder.
Yeah, except it's tough for me to believe that they will be held accountable because of the Supreme Court ruling that I just mentioned, because of the qualified immunity that's in place. And I've got to mention Larry Nassar, because we've talked about him on this podcast and how the FBI and law enforcement botched the handling of that case. So that I forget the number, but I believe it was dozens of young girls were sexually assaulted by him because of the inaction and mishandling. We learned this week that none of those law enforcement agents will be held accountable. None of them will face criminal charges. And so that's it. Cops don't protect babies from being raped and killed with impunity is what I take away from that. How can you take away anything else from that? I mean, how can you?
A tough week. I don't know what else to say. I just,
no, we're
absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, we're recording this late on Friday. It likely won't be out until after Memorial Day. We have employees that obviously have a long weekend. Hope everyone had a good long weekend. Got to see their friends and family, are honest and open in their communications with them and their discussions with them about what's going on and what we can do to all be better, because it comes down to raising your babies right and the familial bond and how you raise your kids. I guess I just can't stop. So I don't know if you saw the firearm company that sold the kid the guns. Not that they broke the law, but it was Daniel Defense. But what they did do, I don't know if you saw some of their advertisements on Twitter that have now been taken down, but like a week before the shooting, one of their advertisements was like a literal toddler, like a 3-year-old boy holding an AR-15 with a Bible quote.
Baby Brit or something like that, right?
With a Bible quote that says, basically, I don't know what the Bible says, so sorry. The Bible quote was something like, if you raise them up right when it's time, they'll do the right thing, right? Insinuating that essentially you should be training toddlers how to use AR-15s as a God-given right and thing that is biblically good. Well, that account has been taken private, so they clearly don't feel too good about those advertisements. And also, that's just insane. That's an insane advertisement to have an AR-15 in the hands of someone under 5 years old. Again, gun owner, Second Amendment supporter, wasn't allowed to have a gun. Certainly before I was 10 years old. Wasn't allowed to handle that weapon until I had training, and never by myself in my younger years if I wasn't with my dad, right? And that training from a younger age with firearms instills that responsibility, right? Even I was thinking about it this morning, and this might be a little out there, but even taking the life of animals, right? Like hunting deer and hunting squirrels, it's not like, you walk up to that dead deer and you don't feel great because you just killed something, right? You feel responsibility and you feel that loss of life, and it's not something that you do for the pleasure of it, right? It's something that you do for the sport and the sustenance and the tradition of it, and that just, I think, is comes down to responsible gun owning. I don't know if this kid had previous firearm training or guns before this, but I would say probably not. Probably wasn't brought up in a culture of responsible gun owning, and so Anyway, starting to get on my soapbox and rant a little bit, but so many issues, like I say, societally, that need to be rectified and improved to improve the overall situation, that it seems like such a daunting task. And I guess I would also just urge people not to lose hope that it is a window in time, and that these cycles, because they're cycles, even in society, and with all the bad things that are happening, do come to an end, and they do pass. And let's hope that we have the courage to let them pass, having to let them pass and be better off for it, not worse off for it, I would say. And that has to do with how we respond to it.
You know where guns are not allowed? At the NRA convention.
No, I didn't know that. Yeah.
The fucking hypocrisy, man.
Yeah, it's pretty.
What are you worried about?
It's pretty blatant.
You want to talk markets at all, Nick?
No, we're long in the tooth here.
Who gives a fuck?
We
right?
can get back to.
Had somebody ask about some guy saying my name again, because he likes to say my name every couple of months for whatever reason. He's just infatuated or something.
Oh.
I'm kind of flattered, and I was like, who cares?
Yeah.
Who is he, and why does he matter? And
yeah. No, we can do it next week.
Perspective, right?
Still in a. I can do it for you in 30 seconds. Still in a bear market. You've seen a tech bounce in the past 2 days. That's going to fade. Rates have turned around. The dollar will get strong again. Avoid the market for now. The individual stocks at least, and gold is starting to look strong again. And we can dive into all of that more next week.
Well said, guys. Let's guys, gals. Humans, can we be more human? Be a little kinder? Be a little more accountable? Be a little bit more honest? Heavy heart today. I'm Gerardo Del Real. Along with Mr. Nick Hodge, this was 171 of Bizarro World.
See you, everybody. Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.